The next thing I would like to show you is how to configure a G1. So far we've just done rapid movements. The next thing would be to do a G1. You can do that the same way as for the G0. So right mouse click, insert a G command, select a G with a number, and then rename it and so on. If you have G codes that are pretty similar, and if you remember from the documentation, the difference between a rapid movement and a linear movement is basically just a different parameter in the set motion type, so it's very similar. So instead of just replicating everything, another option that you have in Machine Configurator is make a right mouse click on this code and then create a copy. You can also move the code, but in this case we want to have a copy and copy it into the current file into the G-code section. In this case it will produce a new unique name and we will rename it into G1. So now we have our definition for G0 and G1. Of course we need to adopt it so that it also has different behavior. So if I added the meta code in G1, of course I will see now the same implementation as for 0. And using right mouse click you can expand in XML Notepad. And the only thing I need to do is to remove the rapid so that it gets a linear movement. That's it. Saving it. Yes. Save the MCF file. And I will just show you what happens now. So we will make no, reset doesn't help. First of all I need to use G1. So instead of in my first line, well, let's do it in the second line, I will just program a G1 and let's see what happens. So I make a reset so that my changed MCF and the changed program is read in. I simulate the first line, nothing happens, and then we have our G1, and then you will not get the message that the meta code does not exist because we have defined the G1, but CSE or the motion planning figures out, okay, now we need to make a feed rate move, but there is no feed rate, so something is missing. You get an indication that you need to change your NC program and also provide a feed rate. So let's, for example, make 100 here. Program F. If we select that again, I guess you know what happens. We will get an error message that CSE doesn't know what F means. So we need to configure our F meta code in Machine Configurator. F is also one of the addresses, so we select addresses, add one, select the F meta code, and then customize it. And then looking at the documentation, also under standard motions and delays, you will find a set feed. That looks good. So set feed also takes one value and it has an optional parameter. This parameter modal is a Boolean variable. It can be either true or false. You find that multiple times in the kernel commands. It basically tells you if you program a F in one line, is the same feed rate value also active in the next line, or do you have to program it in all lines again? So that's specified by this flag. You can omit it, but on Siemens the feed rate is always modal, so it's active in all following lines, so just specify a true here. That's the set feed command. I will just show you how this reacts if you do it for the Siemens, if you do it wrong. So we need the set feed, so I will customize my F meta code. Then add a child, which is a command. Then add another child name. The name of the command was set feed. The parameter we need is, oh, after was wrong. No, deleted element as a child parameter That was value. So also the feed, the F metacode, the parser produces this value. And now I will make a mistake so that you can see how CSE reacts. I will use this optional second parameter, and I will make it non-modal. So I will add a parameter false. One remark: if you have to create the same structures again, there's a convenient way to do that in XML Notepad using edit and duplicate. That produces the same section again. You can also do that using the keyboard shortcuts with Control D. That produces duplicates. And in this case it's not very useful, but you can even replicate whole structures with Control D, and then you have the same structure again. That's a pretty convenient way to duplicate structures. So in this case we said we want to have the parameter false in capital letters, like specified here in the documentation. And let's see how our controller behaves. So we want to save the XML file and save the MCF. Then let's look at our program again. So what should happen? The first movement is a G0, then we switch into G1 and have specified a feed rate. And then the next movement should also be in G1, but we do not explicitly program a feed rate. So let's see what CSE does with that. So I make a reset, we'll read it in again. So G0 does nothing. G1 should now move much slower. So feed rate of 100 was probably not a good idea. We need to change the next time. Here you can see the progress if you switch to machine coordinates. Almost there. And the next line should also be a G1. But in this case, CSE knows that the feed rate was only for the one line and it's not modal, so that's why you get this error message again. That's of course not the behavior of the Siemens controller and most others. So we changed that again, edit the metacode, expand it, and replace the false with a true, and save it again. Reset. Like I said, we should increase the feed rate a little bit. So now our feed rate moved to 100 and another one to 200, and now it seems to work. Back to 100, and CSE really knows that the G1 is always modal, so set motion type is always modal, while set feed you can specify the behavior and configure that in the MCF file. That's it for the G1 moves.